And then I heard something really strange, the sound of two large doors creaking open on hinges that had not been oiled for a long time. And along with that came, the flame grew. So looking down, the doors were sideways and the flame grew greater. And then I saw something, to my shock, amble out from this, and it was massive. It was a creature that Hollywood couldn't replicate. The most disgusting looking creature, large, with a body of fire and smoke.
So how do the decisions we make and the way we choose to live our lives here on earth impact eternity? And as believers, what do we have to look forward to in heaven? Well, today's special guest is here to answer those questions and share about his near-death experience, which is going to be amazing. First, joining me around the table is my daughter-in-law, Susanna Lamb. Are you excited?
I am beyond excited. Thank you for having me.
I love hearing about these kind of testimonies. Dorothy, welcome to the table.
Thank you, thank you.
Near death, dead for 11 hours.
Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to hear.
I know. Well, he's a former airline pilot and businessman whose unexpected journey to heaven is impacting lives around the world, and we're excited to have him share his story with us. Please help me welcome Jim Woodford.
Welcome.
Ladies.
Hello there. All the way from Canada.
Yeah.
Well, in 2014, Jim had a near-death experience and spent 11 hours in eternity. And during this time, the Lord showed him some of the wonders of heaven, along with giving him a glimpse into what hell is really like. And yes, there is a place called hell, and we don't want anybody watching to go there, and neither does God. Well, today he's here to tell us all about this supernatural encounter. Welcome.
Thank you, Joni.
Thank you for coming all the way from Canada, and your book, Heaven, An Unexpected Journey. But we don't have a lot of time. We got to get you dead and back alive again. So I'm just going to recap. Jim was a very successful businessman and airline pilot. I mean, the Lord really blessed you, and all of a sudden, here you have a sickness that comes upon you, and they take you to the hospital, and they find out it's what?
Guillain-Barré.
What is that exactly?
It's, in a nutshell, it's the myelin, your own autoimmune system attacks the myelin sheath on your brainstem, and it's as though you took an electrical cord and cut all the insulation off, and all the signals go wild. Tremendous pain, paralysis, difficulty speaking, you name it. It's bad.
That had to be a devastating blow for you, because here you had been an airline pilot, very active, and all of a sudden it just kind of brought you to a halt, didn't it?
Yeah, and I ran a number of businesses, and I was called Diamond Jim, because whatever I touched turned to diamonds.
Wow. So where was God your death? Because you're going to die. He's going to die in just a little bit. But before that, all those years of being successful, and then finding out you were sick, finding out what you had, where was God in the picture? I mean, how did you see God?
I was raised in a Christian home. My family were Catholic, and I had a good upbringing. But as I got older, I suppose like many of us, I gravitated toward the business of making life and making success, that sort of thing. So, and with my success at whatever I attempted, I developed an arrogance. Mm-hmm. And slowly, I suppose like everyone, I hoped that someone was in charge of the chaos. So I wasn't an agnostic, but I certainly wasn't a true believer.
Okay, so let's jump ahead if we could a little bit, because I want to make sure and get all of heaven in, because it's so amazing, the story. Because really, we could take 2.5 hours and we still wouldn't get the whole story. We only have 30 minutes. So, okay, so you sell a piece of land and you're out of the hospital, but you're addicted to painkillers because you had pain like 24/7, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't nuisance pain. It was incredible pain.
Debilitating.
I mentioned to you one time that I actually kept a leather strap by the bed to bite on to keep from screaming in the night and waking the family.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So, but never once did I call out to God in my stupidity and my arrogance.
Wow.
But boy, did I learn quick.
Okay, so you got addicted to painkillers because, of course, that's how he would function through the day. And so eventually, I guess you built up a resistance and you needed more pain medicine and more pain medicine. So on this particular day, you hadn't been driving or anything, but you were going to look at a piece of property that you had sold. And because it was back roads, you were going to just go in your truck and make sure the markers were correct. Yep. So pick up there and take us through what happened.
And so it was late in the afternoon. Sun was starting to set, and I drove to this site, and I parked the truck, and I didn't do it intentionally, but I was facing the setting sun. Little did I know the sun was setting on the day and on my life. And I was trying to get up the energy to get out of the truck. I felt so sick, and I had stashed some more medication, and I realized I'd already taken more for the day. But, you know, pain is a terrible thing. It drives you. And I just wanted the relief. And so I took more, and I sat back waiting for that to happen. And instead of that nice warm relief of the ache in every bone in my body, suddenly it felt as though my feet were on fire. And I actually remember looking down at the floor of the truck. Why is there a fire in the truck? And it spread rapidly up my legs from my fingertips inboard and seized my lungs. And you know when you're dying. And it was as though I was drowning because my lungs were collapsing. And I kept raising my head to try to breathe. And then in that last instant, someone who had never prayed since I was a child, I called out 3 words that made all the difference. From somewhere inside of me, Joni, that I didn't even know still existed.
Wow.
I became instantly aware of all the time I had wasted and all the help that I could have been to people and all the kindness I should have shown. And instead, I was completely absorbed in my own wealth and arrogance. And I cried out, God, forgive me.
Those
God,
3 words.
Forgive me. And I remember my hand was shaking as I tried to reach out to God, and I fell forward and collapsed on the steering wheel.
So then what happened?
I can't tell you exactly how long I was over the steering wheel, but I remember waking up, and the first thing I noticed was that I had no pain. This thing that had ruled my life for 4 years, I had no pain. It was as though I had taken off a heavy, wet overcoat and the pain with it. I slid out of the truck. I walk about 15 feet away, and I feel incredible. It's a spring evening in April. I can hear the birds. I can smell the grass. And for the first time, I have no pain. And I looked down at my feet, and it's as though I can see through them. And I, of course, rationalized it and thought, boy, that medication was powerful, but it worked. And I'm just standing there absorbed in the feeling of being healthy again. And I turn and look at my truck, and instantly I'm filled with rage because someone is in my truck. Not only that, he's sleeping on the steering wheel. And so I turned to go over there and just do what guys do and tell him I didn't appreciate it. And have you ever had a dream where something's chasing you and you can't move your feet?
Yes.
That's what it was like. But I managed to inch a little closer, and I look up, and I words fail me to describe to you the moment when I look into the truck and that realization that that body leaned over the wheel of that truck is not a stranger. It is me. And I know it's me because my head is this way on the wheel and there's blood gushing from my mouth.
Wow. Wow.
But in my arrogance and my, ability to fix anything, fly anything, do anything, I thought if I could just get over there and get back in my body, everything would be okay. Little did I know it was not okay. Wow. Suddenly I began to rise and I'm floating upwards. And I'm looking down at the truck. I could see my body through the rear window of the truck. And I'm very aware of the altitude as a pilot. And I get up there and I tilt my head back. This beautiful golden circle appears in the sky like a gigantic wedding ring, 60 feet in diameter. The center fills with gold, and then the gold swings back. And then, as though I had hit all the thrusters on the jets on the aircraft that I used to fly, I went at tremendous speed into that tunnel of light. I'd heard the term before, tunnel of light, and I think most people have, but that's exactly what it was. It's a corridor to another place. And it was almost instantaneous. I went through it. The strangest thing, Joni, was typically if you're going fast, you hear the speed of the wind, you feel the wind on your face, nothing, just silence. I come to a door, and it's covered in mist, a door or a portal, and I know I have no choice but to go through because the tunnel is closing behind me. And so I step through, and it's misty, I cannot see, but I look down at my feet, the mist starts to clear, and I can't believe it. I'm standing on the most incredible, beautiful green grass I've ever seen. Each blade lit up. And I now know what they mean by the saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. They're talking about heaven.
Yeah.
And I look up, and the mist clears, and I get my first gaze of paradise. But there's something interesting. On the right, there's this beautiful field with flowers and mist and a beautiful blue sky, but curiously enough, no sun. And as a pilot, that's the first thing I look for to orient myself. Am I northwest? Am I southeast? And I'm looking for the sun. But as my gaze traversed to the left, that beautiful green grass went from green to scorched to brown to scorched to black and dropped off in a crevasse. I've always been an inquisitive person. I couldn't get over the dichotomy between the two vistas. And so I walked over very carefully and looked down this pit. And the walls were like black anthracite coal and slippery. And as I look, there's a dim flicker of a red light, not unlike a campfire you would see in the distance on a summer night. But it started to grow larger. And then I heard something really strange, the sound of two large doors creaking open on hinges that had not been oiled for a long time. And along with that came, the flame grew. So looking down, the doors were sideways and the flame grew greater. And then I saw something, to my shock, amble out from this, and it was massive. It was a creature that Hollywood couldn't replicate. The most disgusting looking creature, large, with a body of fire and smoke. Yet it had features not unlike a hyena.
Oh, wow.
And it was clearly sniffing and searching for something. But then suddenly I saw it pause, and then it gazed back up toward me. The look of hatred in the eyes, Joni, of that creature for anything, for me and for mankind, was palpable. And that, combined with the stench of death and decay that came out of that pit, it was the smell of despair. The smell of despair. And then what really galvanized me was it started to climb up the walls toward me. And for a large creature, it was fairly nimble and quick.
How large was it? About?
Well, it was 60 feet, I guess, because
huge.
when it got up over the pit, it stood in front of me. And faced like a hyena, snarling. I mean, you know, the old-time pastors weren't wrong.
Right.
We laugh at them now because, oh, well, how bad can it be? Let me tell you something, folks. You don't want to see what I saw.
Yeah.
You don't. And Hollywood couldn't replicate it. Slobbering, it was drooling. I could hear the sound of its drool slapping the ground. But the worst thing was I heard my name being called.
How terrifying.
My name, Lord, my name. This creature knew me. Yeah. And I'm trying to rationalize. I wasn't that bad a guy. I didn't think I was.
Yeah.
I didn't kill anyone. I didn't rob anyone. I didn't hurt anyone. But I wasn't as kind unless I got a tax receipt. And then along with that, my name being called, Jim, we are here for you. This is your time with us. And then the strangest thing happened. I heard screaming, but here's the sick part. The screaming was coming from within the body of this creature. It was as though it had consumed souls, and they were screaming for release.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, this is what hell is.
Yeah.
This is not some fairy tale.
Yeah.
And it came up out of the pit, and I staggered backwards, and I turned my back to it to keep my sanity, and I felt a claw right down my back. All the while, it's calling my name and trying. And I really feel that if I had turned around, that would have been acceptance, and I would have been snatched. But instead, remember the 3 words I cried out? The
God forgive me.
God forgive me. The next 3 were magical. I turned toward that beautiful vista to my right, and I lifted both my hands, and I cried out, God, God, help me, help me. I, who ignored him, expected nothing. Wow. And he gave me everything.
That's so good.
And suddenly 3 points of light appear in the sky. They come rushing toward me, and they form, and I realize they're angels. The light came over me and went behind me, and I turned in time to see that light strike the demon. And when it did, it shrieked and screamed and scrambled back down in that pit. Darkness and evil cannot exist in the light of God.
Wow.
Okay, so when you said, help me, God, and those 3 points of light started to come through,
Yeah.
what happened?
And they came from different points. You know, as a pilot, I was trying to figure out what points of the compass are they coming from. And they all joined into one and came and made a beautiful landing. I was really impressed with the landing because they were coming in hot. And
They had to, quickly.
And then, so when the demons scrambled back down the pit, they came right up to me, and I realized I'm looking at these 3 magnificent creatures of God. Something that I thought was a Christmas card legend, you know? And they're coming toward me, and the first one is about 10 feet tall, the next one is about 13 feet tall, and the one coming behind was about 15 feet tall and built and dressed like a warrior. And they came right up to me, and the curious thing is people say, you say he or she, and it's because I don't, it's like they had a combination of the gentleness and determination of a woman, but the physical strength of a man, you know, but to me, they were the best of all of us, but not us. And they came right up to me, and I've discovered later the first one coming toward me was my guardian angel. Now that poor angel had pulled an awful tour of duty. Looking after me, but it came right up to me and and I'm looking up into those violet eyes, beautiful, beautiful eyes, not unlike yours, and violet eyes and silver hair, 2 spires of golden light. I didn't see wings in the traditional feathers. It was more of a light, and they canted inwards and created this halo of gold over their silver hair, which I think gives us the idea of a halo. It's not. It's a refraction of the light. Anyway, and an arm comes around me, and then a huge wing comes out around me and gathers me, and there I am, cuddled up to the chest of an angel, being hugged to an angel. And Joni, people say to me, Jim, what's it like to be hugged by an angel? And I really struggle with that. How do you describe that? And here's what it is. Being hugged by an angel of God is like being hugged by 50 grandmothers at once.
And they said something too, or was that at the point where they said something to you and they kind of bowed in reverence?
Yes, and so then the other 2 came forward and they bowed to me. And when they bowed, it was more than a bow of introduction. It was a bow of reverence. And I was immediately taken by, why would you bow to me, the lowest of the low? I'm a man. And my guardian said to me, James, do you not know that when we look at mankind, we see the light of our master within you?
Wow.
And And that's the central part of this book, and the reason I read is to remind people constantly of the light. And we've talked a lot about light today, the light that is within each one of you. That is the precious light of God. And the light that is in your new baby about to be born. That is God's light.
It's God's image.
It's God's image.
Yes.
And we are caretakers of that image. It is up to us whether we make that light glow. And guess what? When the more kindness you do, the more you help people, the gentler you are with people, the more that light glows, and people see it. They don't physically see it like I do, but they see there's something different about you. And there is something different about you. You are carrying God's image within you, and you have everything at your disposal.
Right, and we have the message of the gospel to share that the light of the world came to this earth and took our place.
Exactly.
And that they can go to heaven one day if they will repent and believe that he died on the cross for their sins.
I mean, it's stunning in its simplicity and in its beauty.
Yes.
Okay, well, you have to tell the two kind of earthly things that happened that we'll all, I think, really touched my heart, because just the detail of God, in that even when one day when we go to heaven, there are going to be things that remind us of earth.
Yeah, so I was telling Joni earlier, all my life I've loved horses. I grew up, my dad died when I was 2. My brother and I, my mom lived with my grandparents. My grandfather was a logger without a tractor back in those days. This would be 1958. Wow. So he logged with horses. And then I get to heaven, and the wonderful thing, imagine the creator of the universe, and he knows what each and every one of you loved as a little girl. What was most precious to you is that moment that made you happy. That's all recorded. And so then when he sees you in his home in heaven, he puts things in front of you that reminds you that you have come home and you're his child again.
Wow, wow, wow.
So for me, when the angels hugged me in heaven, I smelled tapioca. You know?
So good.
And I keep telling people, I'm not here to start the Church of the Holy Tapioca. I'm not.
Tapioca.
But I think it speaks to the elegance and the love of our Creator, that such an ordinary thing is full of such love.
So you smelled the tapioca pudding because as a little boy...
Yeah, because when I was a little boy, walking home through a raging snowstorm in the middle of July, I'd go into my grandmother's house and she'd have a big bowl of warm tapioca for me.
And then your love for horses.
And then
What
my
did
love
you
for horses.
see
So
there?
as they're showing me things, the curious thing, Joni, was as I was walking along, and I've always been an inquisitive person, and I was asking questions, and before I could ask the question, they gave me the answer, if that makes sense. And at the same time, it was like I was being downloaded with all this knowledge of heaven.
Wow.
I now have 6 journals of memories of heaven.
My goodness.
Wow.
That I wrote within the first 6 months of coming back. So, I mean, don't get me on a roll, Joni, because you can't shut me up. But it's important. It's the most important thing in our life is our death and where we go. So, getting back to the horses, we come to a fence, and the guardian says, James, look, and he raises his hand and does this, and around this clump of trees come 3 of the most magnificent horses. And my wife and I, by the way, met on horseback. So horses, you know, are ingrained in our souls. And they came right up to the fence, and I put my hand through. And I should say that because I did not study the Bible, I do now, I didn't realize that it says that when Jesus comes back, he'll be riding a white horse.
And one of the horses was white.
One of the horses was white.
And
so I put
Palomino.
And a dun. Yeah,
that was gray.
And I put my hand into the coat to stroke the horse's neck. They were so magnificent, and my hand went right into its body, a being of light. And when I pulled my hand back, the most incredible thing happened. The light of the animal's body, the horse's body, clung to my hand till I got it back about 10 inches and then let go and went back into its body. And I call that the sticky love of God.
Wow.
God's love wants to cling to you. It wants you back to where you came from.
And so there were two things that he loved on earth, tapioca pudding and horses.
And horses.
And he got to experience that outside of heaven.
Because so many women have come up to me crying to tell me that it gave her hope. And what I saw was not just the halls of learning, the halls of music, the halls of records, the halls of healing. I said, why would you need a hall of healing in heaven? He said, James, many times people come to us very quickly, as you did, in tragic circumstances. And we need a period of reflection and healing for their soul to understand what happened and what happens next. And that they are cared for and they are loved and they're to their forever home.